All right, everyone. Expressly apologizing right up front. Sorry that I'm a little bit late. I anticipated I would be home at about 5:30 so I could finish up getting the slides together and everything like that, and it ended up taking me a little bit longer to get home. Thank you very much for joining me, those of you who have made it in here, and for those of you who didn't click off when I didn't show up right at 5:45, you guys are the absolute best. You make this channel a whole lot of fun and all that good stuff. So usual stuff. Links in the description for donations, the Don't Sue Me slide. The link for the store is down there if you want to pick you up a hat, pick you up a sticker. The one all the way there on the right, as far as the stickers go, if you want that, get it before I change my mind, because I'm getting kind of sick of it. Like, seeing it just kind of makes me mad. I wish I hadn't even typed those words, because I just don't like them. And we've got slightly different slides for this evening. So the Carolina Whalers will be playing against the Utah Mammoth, which is kind of a weird matchup because Utah is literally the newest team in the league, playing against a team in vintage colors, and it's just I wish they would stick to nights of doing this against, like, Boston and Colorado, when they're wearing the Nordique sweaters, all that stuff. I think that stuff's really cool. That's what I wish they would stick with. But that aside, so today's the 29th of January, as you know. The Hurricanes are now 13, 15, and 5. They are 18, 8, and 2 at home, and they are 7, 1, and 2 in their last 10. So they're doing good right now. 28, 21, and 4 is the overall record for the Mammoth. This team is getting there. They've got a ways to go yet. By the way, Lackey, that's for you. They got a ways to go yet. But they are getting dangerous. Their road record is not awful. There's still a little bit of improvement to be done there, but 13, 4, and 2, they're getting really close to having a winning team on the road. So they got a lot to fight for tonight. They're currently sitting in wild card 1, I believe. I didn't get a chance to really double check the standings like I wanted to. I've had a really busy day. In the last 10 games, they were 8, 1, and 1. So this team is doing well. It's going to be a tough out. So going into the big picture here, Carolina has a plus 30 goal differential. Utah's holding solid at plus 21. Goals for per game, 3.38 for Carolina. They're starting to hang steady right there. Goals against per game for Carolina has taken a slight downward turn in the good way, down to 2.83. It was previously at 2.86. The power play is holding steady above 20%, and it's significantly better than what the overall record of the season shows, considering it just wasn't very good to start the season. Now it's doing well. Penalty kill numbers are starting to get back towards the numbers that you would expect to see, that is characteristic of the Carolina Hurricanes. So 80.3, it's going to go up, especially with Slavin back in the lineup. 50.4 for the faceoffs. Goals for 167, 146, plus 21, like I said, for Utah. 3.15 per game, 2.75 against per game. So kind of about the same differential there if you're talking goals percentage per game. Their power play is sitting at 15.2%. Their penalty kill is at 80%, and their faceoff percentage is sitting just under 50 at 49.2. I got to turn my fan on. It's way too hot in here. Give me 1 second, guys. You're a good boy. All right, so we're going to look at the Canes lines here. So Bussy, as we know, is getting the start. We'll talk about that in the goaltending matchup a whole lot more. Yes, you're reading that correctly. 19-3-1. Bro is 19-3-1. Gostisbehere looks like he's returning to the lineup tonight. He will be taking over power play 1. Nikishin is now down to power play 2. For the top line, you have Svechnikov, Aho, and Jarvis, Hall, Stankoven, and Blake. Ehlers, Stahl, Martinuk, Carrier, Jankowski, and Kokaniemi for the fourth line. Defense, no changes really there, except for the fact that Gostisbehere is back in the lineup. Slavin, Chatfield, Miller, Walker, Gostisbehere, Nikishin, Riley, the extra. Joel Nystrom has been assigned to the Chicago Wolves. Noah Phillip was also placed on waivers yesterday, thankfully, for reasons that are totally not personal or my dislike of the utilization of a certain player. He cleared. I did not expect him to. I thought that Edmonton was going to pick him back up, but he cleared, so maybe you can make some competition at that position. I think it would be greatly beneficial to the team, and I'm not biased at all. Utah's lineup. So this forward group right here is actually pretty good. Clayton Keller, Nick Schmaltz, and Lawson Krause. That's a lot of firepower right there. It's the same thing with the second line with Peterka, Hayton, and Butt. Like, you've got a lot of firepower in that top 6. A lot of their goals percentages have been produced from that top 6 right there. And their bottom 6 is nothing to sneeze at it either, with Carcone, McBain, Yamamoto. Tanev, Stenlund, and O'Brien round out the fourth line. So that's a very balanced lineup with a lot of firepower, particularly in the top six. Slavin's going to be busy tonight, particularly against the Schmaltz line. Jordo's going to be busy against the Schmaltz line. But even if you do shut that line down, that second line produces a lot for you. With their defense, they actually have a pretty decent balanced defense as well, as far as having a safety valve type of shutdown guy and a puck mover. The first pair really emphasizes offensive lethality. Sergachev and Durzi. So the biggest thing here is Sean Durzi is very much an offensive defenseman. Sergachev is more of a two-way guy with a really good shot. He's physical, he's irritating, everything like that. That pair is going to see a lot of Utah's offensive zone starts after whistles. So just go ahead and get used to them generating a lot of offense. They can do it from their own end too. Both of them are really good at driving transition plays, especially Durzi, and he can get away with doing stuff like that because of how good defensively Sergachev is. Second pair, Nate Schmidt and Dan Marino. That's a really solid, more of a shutdown type of pair, but you do get a little bit of offense out of them. The third pair is a pure shutdown pair between Cole and Simone. Goaltenders, you have Vitek Vanacek and Kirill Vejmelka. Vejmelka will be getting the start tonight. These are the lines, the line graphic from their previous game in Florida. However, from what I saw on game day tweets, there are no expected changes to this lineup. So we'll see how it goes here with this and everything. Biggest thing though, shut down the top six, watch the top pair, and Kirill Vejmelka over the years has had Carolina's number at times. Let's not turn him into a Vezina candidate tonight, please. That would be one of the best things that could possibly happen. Is don't go for quality chances against Vejmelka, considering in the past when you went for high volume stuff, it hasn't worked well against him, at least for Carolina. So speed, you got a little bit more speed in this Utah team. They're young, they're fast. This is one of those teams that once they figure it out, they've got all the right pieces. Once they figure it out, though, like for example, I think that Dylan Gunther should still be out of the lineup as well. So that's kind of a big loss for them. Otherwise, their forward group is significantly better with him. But there's a little bit more speed here with Utah than there is with some other teams and everything like that. And even with Carolina trending in the right direction, getting healthy and everything like that, they're still a very, very fast team. They've got an advantage all the way across the board in all the burst speeds and at the top speed and everything like that. So this is a team that's going to exit the zone quickly. They're going to transition quickly, and they're going to generate their entries, not so much with precision, but with speed. So when I was watching them play Florida the other night, that's something I noticed about them and they stood up to Florida. So it can be done. Like you can stand up to the Florida Panthers if you choose to do so. Just putting that out there. But they had a lot of pushback against them when I was watching that game the other night. So the thing about that is Utah will not execute the zone entries with precision. They do it very quickly. Basically, they're just up ice so fast that you don't really get time to deny entry in a lot of situations. If there's one team that can do that, it's Carolina. Offensive zone time 45.2 to 41.2, neutral zone 18.4 to 17.9, defensive zone 36.3 to 40.9. Now, there's one thing I want to point out here. Usually, Carolina has a definitive shot attempt advantage, and they do tonight. However, one thing to consider with this, normally we don't see a shot attempt differential on the other team being very far above league average, and actually it's normally below. Plus 2.6 on the shot attempt differential above league average for Utah. That could be a problem with as quickly as they can enter the zone. They don't hesitate to fire the puck once they're in there. And if they do get the puck back, they're pretty good at establishing the zone through a cycle game. Shots on goal differential, not much difference there. Carolina, again, volume shooting, not necessarily always accurate. The Mammoth are a little bit above that at 0.1 above the league average, but this is a team where the shot volume difference is, on paper anyway, is not likely to be as wide of a margin as normal as compared to when Carolina plays against a lot of other teams. Speaking of shots on goal, Carolina has the advantage around the perimeter, but in tight, that's where Utah generates a lot more of their shots from. And we're at the point in the season where this is not that big of a difference. 1,668 to exactly 1,500 shot attempts, or shots on goal, excuse me. This is not a big difference when you're talking about the point in the season that we are at right now. High danger chances, pretty close, 456 to 439. Mid-range, Carolina gets a big advantage there, and they get a bigger advantage in long range. So, again, one of those nights where you have to keep Utah out of the slot, even if they don't have Gunther, even if they, it's like And I think it said that Cooley was out tonight too. Yeah, you have to. The thing is with this team, yeah, you can keep them on the perimeter, but if you do keep them on the perimeter, and I saw this the other night when they were playing Florida, at times where you do manage to keep them on the perimeter, that's when they turn into Carolina and they throw the puck on net anyway, and then just try and use their speed to get it back. So there's some similarities with how they attack the game in the offensive zone, the way that Utah does it versus how Carolina does it. There's a little bit more volume when it comes to the way that Utah does it. Utah, on the other hand, is not really as good at hemming the other team in as Carolina normally is. So we will see some similarities in that regard tonight, I think, with sustainability of the offensive zone. It's just Utah seems to do it a little bit more with a cycle game as opposed to a forechecking game like Carolina does. Not to say that both those teams can't establish a forecheck or both those teams can't play a cycle game, but I think the passing game is going to favor Utah a little bit. And when you're talking about the sustainment of the offensive zone, I think it's going to lean a little bit more that way. So going into where the goals are being scored from, Carolina has a little bit of an edge here. So 176 to 167 for overall goals, high danger 80 to 78, mid-range 67 to 50, long range 15 to 12. So I think that one of the ways I see that this game going, if Kirill Vejmelka does what he normally does against the Hurricanes, and that's be really, really annoying and hard to score against because Carolina makes it too easy for him as they have in the past. This is one of those games where Carolina could put up 40 shots on goal, 90 shot attempts, and lose 2-1. It could be that. Now, since you have Bussy at the other end now, maybe that doesn't become a factor. This one could become a goaltender's duel tonight. And I've always said that I think that Kirill Vejmelka, if 32 of the goalies in the league retired, he'd be one of the best ones. I think he's a very good goalie. He's very underrated. He's just not good enough to crack the full-time stay starting definitive starter type of role. But in the past, he has been problematic. If this turns into a goaltender's duel tonight, it could go either way. It's a coin toss, in my opinion. If this turns into a Carolina shooting the puck a bunch and not scoring, Utah's probably taking this one. If it turns into Utah not being able to get out of their own end and not being able to transition the neutral zone with speed, like if they have to try and hold up and make, calculated controlled entries, Carolina takes this game. So there's a bunch of different factors. These teams, for all the dissimilarities they have numbers wise, they play kind of a symmetrical game to each other when you're factoring in the speed, the offensive zone retention, and they just go about it a little bit differently. Lackey, don't talk about that. Damn you. It's the 49-50 game. God, I have nightmares about that. Now, here's how interesting of a goaltending matchup we have tonight. I'm going to do some research on this, but I know it cannot have happened much. This is the first time that I remember seeing one in a long time. And I can't even remember the last time I did see one, if I've ever seen one at all. This is both goalies are full right, meaning they catch with their right hand, both of them. So this is going to be interesting. Brandon Bussy has played 23 games, won 19, lost 3, and 1 overtime loss. 2 of those losses, not on him. That 1 overtime loss in Florida, not on him. This is that's real. That's a real record, 19-3-1 from a waiver claim. He is 2.15 goals against average, a save percentage of 911. Kirill Vejmelka has played 40 games. He has won 25, lost 2, and had 2 overtime losses, 2.56 goals against average, save percentage of 902. So that's why I said this very well could turn into a goaltender's duel regardless of what goes on in front of them. It really could be that way. If it were Freddie Anderson in net, I'd be a little bit worried about a goaltender's duel, even though he's been better lately. I'm not going to call the we're back department yet on him. But what I will say is that a game like this, I'm feeling a little bit more comfortable about having Bussy in net, considering Vejmelka's history with Carolina and stoning them. Him and Thomas Greiss just seem to always want to just turn into Patrick Waugh against the Hurricanes. So I'm looking forward to this goaltending matchup in a begrudging, it'll be interesting, but I have a feeling it's also going to be an antagonizing sort of way. But when you look at they're giving their shots up at, there's not a ton of difference in a lot of places here. Overall, 911 to 902, that's not a big difference, especially when you're talking about Vejmelka's played a lot more games. 871 to 808, that's where it can be a big difference for Carolina tonight. whatever chances Utah gets, especially off the rush, that they are going to generate are probably going to be high danger. They're probably going to be like through the middle of the ice, in between the dots, right there in the high slot, and anywhere closer to the net from the area that I just described. So where it says, 920 for the Melka, anything inside there is where Carolina needs to try and shoot from. Inversely, where it says that it's an 864 save percentage on Bussey's side of things, that's where Utah is going to want to spend the majority of their time at and put the majority of their shots. And they're going to want quality ones. Like I said, this team is really fast. They generate entries really quick. If you knock the puck off their stick in the neutral zone, they typically overskate it. Or I won't say typically, but it's a distinct possibility they overskate it. If this becomes this right now, I think the biggest factors are going to be transition game, offensive zone establishment and pressure, and goaltending. I think that those are going to be the biggest thing. And the transition game might end up being the biggest factor. So we'll see. Mid-range save percentage, a little bit of an advantage there for the Melka, and pretty close in the long-range save percentage, 976 to 987. Keep in mind, Bussey has not faced a huge volume of shots against in those types of situations, being mid-range and long-range. So we'll see what happens tonight. When he was in Ottawa, he faced shots from everywhere. And I was happy to see him perform as well as he did in a game where he actually saw a lot of rubber. So very, very good deal there. And then as far as goals against, again, the Melka's played a lot more games. So Bussey's got the advantage there in terms of the volume of goals he's giving up is lower everywhere, ultimately, or the numbers of goals he's given up is lower everywhere, but volume-wise, they're a little bit closer. So you'll see where Vejmelka has given up a lot of his are right there on the doorstep. If Carolina is going to make that happen, they have to generate those quick, high-danger chances. You can't just throw the puck on net against this team. You throw it on net, Vejmelka makes a save, even if there's a rebound, Utah scoops it up, and they skate it out really quick. They go into full, like, primal caveman mode once they have the puck back, and then it's just all speed with them from there. So I think that's going to be the biggest factor tonight is going to be the transition game, goaltending, and which team can establish their game, be it through the forecheck or through the cycle. Like I said, forecheck favors Carolina, cycle favors Utah, who establishes their game more in the offensive zone. So those are the three big factors I'm looking for tonight. I will now get to the comments. Holy shit, there's a lot of them. Thanks, guys. Very first thing. Jay Asterisk Inkowski going to go balls to the wall tonight with Filth clearing. Also W title. Thank you. Hoping for an impenetrable Bussey tonight. Yeah, you might need it. You might need it just because of the chances that Utah will be able to generate. Daniel, what's up, buddy? Make me GM. Cavery ran it through the AI and said might accept both ends at 70%. JK, that would ruin the team. I mean, at least maybe you would make a trade. I mean, that would be nice. Noticeable loss for Utah tonight in Gunther. Yes, absolutely. Dylan Gunther's a big loss for them. Timmy, what's up, buddy? Believe. Pull for Panarin not to get traded here. I was when the whole thing about Panarin started coming up, I was 99.9% against getting him already. I watched a game with Quentin Byfield or with the Rangers and the Kings because I wanted to take a look at Quentin Byfield just for the hell of it. And seeing him match up with Trocheck, I'm like, this is a good time to watch them both because they had a lot of their shifts overlapped. I was like, oh, okay. And what I saw of Panarin in that game just completely just turned me off the rest of the way to any idea of bringing him to Carolina. I never wanted him here. Like, yeah, he can put a puck in the net, but like, what good does that do you if he's not at least somewhat of a stylistic fit? You know, the Swiss cheese model is a thing, and there's too many holes there. So, pull for Thomas. I'm still pulling for Thomas, man. That's what I'm hoping for, as long as it doesn't cost Carolina Nikishin. But like I've said before, I think the best package that Carolina could offer, or I'm sorry, the second best package that Carolina could offer is still better than any other contenders package without them really significantly having to change stuff with their roster players. You know, for example, if Blake were to be traded and you need someone to fill that spot, you've got Nadeau, or you move Stankoven back to the wing. There's so many options there. Other teams can't do that, not contenders. So waiting to see what happens with that. Bobby says, tired of all the posts about trading Nikishin. He's the watchman and physical presence we've been waiting for, especially in the playoffs. Touch a star and get ready to see stars. Yeah, I don't want him touched. Absolutely not. I personally would not have offered him up for Quinn Hughes. I understand the rationale behind it. I do not understand. And I'm like the number one Robert Thomas proponent. I do not believe Nikishin for Thomas is a worthwhile or beneficial trade for Carolina. 4 years of Robert Thomas, even though I'm a really big Robert Thomas fan, 4 years of Robert Thomas is not worth a potential career of Alexander Nikishin. Now, when you're talking Nystrom, Legault, someone like that, a little bit more of a discussion to be had there. But we will see. No, he won't, Lackey. Shut up. Strogy, what's up, dude? Hey, it's been a while. Hope everything's good. Enjoying the season so far. Enjoying it to the extent that I can, with feeling like the wheels are still... I still feel like the wheels are ready to come off at any moment. It's felt that way this entire season, even when they're winning. I'm a firm believer that and this just comes from me seeing what's gone on with the team the last couple of years, particularly since I want to say 22-23, I felt like that it's been on kind of a feedback loop. So when I see them at the top of the standings during the regular season, I feel like they're kind of a paper dragon. And you also factor in that I don't want to know where Carolina would be at in the standings if Bussy had not been claimed off of waivers. They could be third. They could be fourth. Hell, Bobby, you could even be fifth. If you ain't first, you're last. Who says stuff like that? But anyway, I love that movie. But I'm also a NASCAR nerd, so that makes sense. But yeah, so it's like I just feel like that, or I won't say I feel like, this is just what I'm assessing. Feelings are different than assessing things. My assessment of the situation is the team is good, not great, still a paper dragon, will get absolutely caved in the playoffs against certain teams should they end up playing them. Florida, even without Barkov, is still an incredibly physical team that will punish Carolina every single time they have the puck. And since Carolina has the puck so much, Florida has plenty of time and opportunities to punish them for having the puck. So that's what I'm wondering, how that's going to go down. So I'm enjoying it to the greatest extent that I can. And part of the reason I'm just not super invested in this season, barring a trade making the team better, I'm not super invested in the team this year because I never thought they were going to win it this year. I remember on multiple occasions, I said it in the first episode of Landfall Hour this year when I had my buddy Missouri Mike on. I was like, I don't think it's this year. I think it's next year. And I think the biggest reason it's next year is I'm looking at the team that you have, the prospects you have, and everything else. And I think that what you see there is a team that is close with what it has, but just not there yet. It's going to be the younger guys that are currently involved taking their next step and being bigger impacts on an individual level in the future when they develop a little bit further, develop more chemistry, all that type of stuff, get some more experience, all that. So my personal belief was it wasn't this team that's going to get it done. Now it still can, but I don't think it can without a trade. I'm thoroughly convinced this team cannot get it done without a trade. And I know that, like, I've had my criticisms of Rod have been a little bit higher than normal lately, and that's because I'm not really looking forward to his game management decisions in the playoffs, because in the last two playoffs in particular, I've seen a couple that have baffled me, absolutely baffled me. It's like me and JJ were on his show the other day talking about Devil's Joint, as you guys know him. Him and I were talking about how, like Kuznetsov getting scratched from Maxime Comtois, and then he plays 4 minutes. Riley, or, the team going 11-7 that one night, and Riley Stillman playing 3.5. Then there was the Scott Morrow, Alexander Nikishin thing in the playoffs last year. And then there was putting Martinook out for the extra attacker in game 5. Like, there's certain things I'm just not looking forward to about it. And I hope that if the front office can improve the team, then Rod doesn't make decisions like that, because it won't even be remotely feasible to do, because he'll have better players. So that's what I'm hoping for. So as it stands right now, yeah, I'm enjoying it as much as I can, but I'm just not convinced this team is going to get it done. I'd never have been, though. Not this year. If it doesn't happen this year, I'm hoping it's next year. For a multitude of reasons that I'll talk about at a later date when the time is right to talk about it. Colby says, don't let Smoltz leave the building. I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him tonight, but Utah's in the hunt. I don't think they're going to trade anybody. Damien, what's up? I have the Canes losing tonight only because this team historically does not do well when returning from long breaks. That is true. You could counter that with the fact that it's Whalers night, though. We've won probably about 90% of our Whalers nights. It's something like that. It's a crazy percentage. Odd tire on a loss tonight because Bussy could become the fastest goalie to 20 wins tonight. Oh, shit. That's not good. J-Dub, what's up, buddy? We did light up milk in that game before Four Nations. Yeah, I was surprised at that because I was like, and then this fool has to come in here and mention the damn 49-50 game. I actually have a screenshot on my phone of that because I remember I took a picture of my TV and sent it to people. I'm like, yo, I can't believe that this is happening. Even by Carolina Hurricane standards, this is excessive experiencing. We all experienced very, very hard that night. So, Wacky fan, that one was dumb. Yeah. Average Canes after dark game. Yeah, that one was rough. Anybody else black out from watching the game, or is it just me? I've tried like every channel and I can't watch the games. It should be on I think it's on just regular FanDuel tonight. It's not like a national game or anything, is it? Whalers night should never be on anything other than the local broadcast. Yeah, it's on FanDuel tonight. Yeah. FanDuel Sports Network. Yeah, it should be on the streaming service. If you're within the regional network. If not, then you'd get it on ESPN Plus if you're out of market. 871 high danger save percentage in reference to Bussy. Yes. Do I have to download it? I have Dino, Fubo. I don't know if it's on there or not. Yeah, it's a paid subscription. Yeah, that's how I watch them now. That because I live in South Carolina now, so I'm in the market. Before I could just watch it on ESPN Plus whenever unless they were playing the Caps. But if they were playing the Caps, if they were in DC, I was normally there. That should be $19.99 a month, I believe. Yeah, the NHL, and then you can also get the add-on with Amazon, which I think is a little bit cheaper. NHL's broadcasting decisions league-wide make no sense. NHL anything doesn't make any damn sense to me anymore. Like they have an occasional W, but a lot of the stuff that they come up with now, I'm just kind of like, what are you doing? Right, yeah. Hopefully the extended break doesn't kill them tonight. I'm expecting them to be a little bit slow when the first period starts. When they come out, they might look a little flat. If they're not, I'll feel 20 times better about this game if they come out and they're not flat. I will feel so much better about that. I have Prime Video and it says not in your region and won't stream it. Are you out of market? Do you live in the Carolinas? Because I think it's the entirety of the Carolinas is supposed to be in the Hurricanes network. That's why it's a pirate life for me, matey. Fubo just doesn't have it. Oh, okay. Yeah, you guys are having a conversation there. Just call him J Cow. It sounds like J Cow and demeaning. Yeah, but I mean, I like burgers and cows become burgers, and that would still ultimately me be associating him with something that I like. I also like, beef tacos and burritos, and yeah, I'm not doing that. I respect cows too much. I prefer drinking protein shakes with milk instead of water because it makes them taste less disgusting. Cows are useful. Cows are useful. Yeah, it's $180 for a year. You should be able to get it for $20 a month too. Please hit the free. It really helps. Thank you, J-Dub. I appreciate that. It's only $20 for the month. I just want to see the Whalers game. Okay. James Dumock, what's up? Would you rather trade Blake or Stankoven? Would rather trade Blake or Stankoven than Nadeau? Feel like his ceiling is higher than people realize. His shot alone makes me not want to trade him. How good of a shot that Bradley Nadeau had. I mean, Sidney Crosby told him, "Don't pass me the puck." Strogie says, I totally agree with you about the team being a paper dragon. My secret wish is to pull a bomb of a deal and get Brady Tkachuk plus 2C. That's what we get this team far in the playoffs. Something like that. Anything to move the needle right now because they're just at this point of stagnation that I don't feel like they've really moved from 22-23. And they put together the best team they've ever had in 23-24. And, I'm going to catch some heat for saying this. Rod fumbled that team. He absolutely fumbled that team. He fumbled that team by sticking Natchez with Stahl and Martinuk, scratching Kuznetsov to put Maxime Comtois in the lineup for him to only play 4.5 minutes. You could probably pick out a couple other things, but those were the big ones. And the power play couldn't score when it needed to. The only time the power play scored was to keep them from, or that had a significant goal, if I remember correctly, was in Game 4 when Shea scored to keep the series going, and all that did was prolong the misery. But are you watching it on FanDuel? Yes, I am. Always thought next year or the year after is when we'll be primed for a run. I think it's next year. Like I said, one trade and my tune about that changes entirely this year. One trade. Bring in a center if you can. If you can't get that, bring in a definitive left winger with size. Then that way you can put them with Hall and Stankoven and they can have some size, or excuse me, Blake and Stankoven, and they can have some size on that line. And then, if you want to bump Blake, or, there's a bunch of different things they can do. Like if they get a center and Stankoven still down, they can bump him down to the Stolle-Martinook line and put him on the right there. He would be great there. Ehlers, Aho, and Svechnikov, I want that line back together. I absolutely love that line. I know Aho and Jarvis have this unmatched chemistry, but that's another reason I say go get a definitive left winger who can play with them. And that wouldn't be the first time they've done something like that. Like the whole reason why they got Michael Ferland was to play with Aho and Teravainen. That was the whole rationale in bringing him in. But Grayson says, I think we do better in the playoffs this year. It'll just be more difficult. I'm not convinced. I'm not. I mean, I think that it's just I've been through this rodeo as many times as I have. I mean, we all have. I'm not trying to say that I was the only one watching, but the whole thing about it is it's like 1920 exceeded expectations. 2020 was not normal. 2021 also was not normal. Landscape of the league was completely different, so I don't count any of that. 21-22, I never felt like that team was going to win. Never felt like that team was going to win at all. And then they couldn't win on the road, and they couldn't score on the power play. If they could have done those two things, Boston is out in 5 and the Rangers are out in 6. And then it's a Carolina and Tampa rematch in the conference finals. But they didn't do that. 21-22, I mean, the goaltending not being there was a big problem, because if Freddie had gotten healed up and ready to go, I think that maybe that series ends a little bit differently. But Ronta and a very young and very inexperienced Kochetkov were only going to get you so far when you couldn't score on the power play and you couldn't win a game on the road. So, it's like the moment they came out flat against the Rangers in Game 7 and 22, I knew that they weren't going to win. Like, I knew that before the puck dropped. I knew they weren't going to win. 22-23, I believed from the outset of that season that team was going to win. And when I say the outset of it, I know I've said this before, but for anybody who hadn't heard it, I went to opening night. That was the first game I'd been to since New Year's Eve of 2020. I went to opening night and I saw that team come out in the 25th and, everything, the vibes were great. We knew the Stadium Series was coming, everything. That's the team that I thought would have won. I was convinced that team was going to win. I remember texting my dad and telling him this team is special. I was like, I know I felt that one. I knew it was coming. And then unforeseen circumstances, primarily Svechnikov's ACL, Kasha's concussion, and Pacioretty's Achilles all decided to be factors. And then Bobrovsky happened. But that was the team I thought was going to get it done. 23-24, I think I was just so disappointed in the season before. I never had full and complete confidence in that. And by Game 2 against the Rangers, I'd kind of given up because of the whole Kuznetsov getting scratched thing. I was like, what was the point of even trading for him if you're going to do that at a time where you really could use him? So Caleb says, speaking both on next year and the trade target, since you were talking on both, I hope we don't trade Charles Alexis to go. I'm the same way. I don't want him or Nyström to go. Think he was really good on his limited time before the injury, and he plays a physical style like we need. Yeah, if it could be done without giving him or Nyström up, that would be great. It's a tough decision for me to give up either Nyström or Legault. From a logistical standpoint, I would say Nyström because he's already signed. So that's something that the receiving team would not have to quantify. They wouldn't have to account for that because it's already accounted for. So there's that. Matthew, what's up? I'm in New York. Is it still on FanDuel? If you're in New York, you should be able to watch it on ESPN Plus. Up there, you should be able to, yeah, because you're out of market at that point, so you should be able to do it then. Need your thoughts on Kadri. I don't know how much you've talked about it. Apparently, the Canes have been linked. I don't want Kadri. I'm not digging that idea at all. Kadri is offering up Kadri is how you get me to be okay with Pettersson. Biggest thing is it's like, let me take a look at something on Puckpedia here, because I remember talking about Kadri before, but apparently, Carolina was on his no trade list. So, and I've never really liked the guy, to be honest. No fucking way. $7 million cap it with, years 5, 6, and 7 after this. No. And he's already 38. No, I'm not. I'd rather have Patterson. Straight up. It's like, and then not to mention, I think he's slowed down significantly from where he was. I'm going to look at the NHL Edge data and everything. I want to see what his production's like too, because if, the biggest problem that people had with KK before all the other stuff snowballed was that he wasn't producing enough. And let's see what his production's like here. All right, so yeah, his production's starting to slip a little bit because let's see, 21-22, he had 87 points. I just went and filtered it by points for the moment. 23-24, he had 75. 24-25, he had 67. 22-23, 56. I mean, that's not horrible production at all. Goals for percentage was on the lower end. Expected goals for percentage hangs out right at about 50, a little bit above, it looks like. Points per 60, 1.64 last season. So, I mean, that's not bad. That's not bad at all. Penalty difference on minus 16. I don't care about that. That's nowhere compared to like Svechnikov's numbers. He doesn't kill penalties. Looks like PK per games played. It's only 4 minutes. Okay, so he does kill penalties. It looks like. I mean, Carolina wouldn't need him to. Let me see. I'm pretty sure he's slowed down significantly too, but I've never been big on getting Kadri. At that point I would embrace Pettersson before Kadri. .12, so definitely not terrible speed, but a little bit slow. Let's see. Yeah, he's still sub 50th percentile in speed, even with that. And, that was one of the rationales of people not wanting Mason McTavish, which was, definitely reasonable if you ask me. Yeah, I've never been big on getting Kadri. At that point, I would embrace Pettersson first. I really would. There is now at least a 10% chance Panarin will be a Hurricane. 10% too high. Okay, that's between y'all. Yeah, if it's Florida again, it would likely be a long series again. Yeah, if it could be a long series, that would be an improvement, because the thing about it is in 22-23, Carolina actually outplayed them 85% of that series, and Bobrovsky saved them. And they got swept. Then you go to last season, and Carolina won a game but played significantly worse when you're looking at the series as a whole. Kadri is decent but too slow. Yeah, he's decent and he's too slow and he's too old, because he's already 38 and he's got 3 years and change on his deal. No, I'm not touching that. Don't want bread in Carolina. No. Like a Mason Marchman I could go for. Bradley should have gotten more games up and more ice time when he was up. And then last time they called him up, he didn't even play. It's like I've talked about, like, in the past, about a line of having Nadeau, Aho, and Svechnikov in that order from left to right. And for some odd reason, Rod is just allergic at times to playing guys on their offside. That line would be great. It would give up a little bit more on the defensive side of things, but Aho is good enough defensively and good enough of a playmaker to drive play for both of those guys. Nadeau's the shooter, the finisher on that line. Svech is the power forward who helps establish the offensive zone and generate the possession there and get the puck back. And, Aho's no slouch at those things either. He's not a, prototypical power forward, but, like, he forechecks really, really fucking hard, more than most people making his amount of money. So I feel like we're fumbling. Everything has felt like a fumble since the end of 22-23 to me. It really has. That was around the time I started the channel too. Strogy says, I definitely have a lot to say about Rod systems. I think I talked about this here a couple years back. The dump and chase zone entries and preferring volume shooting to actual quality shooting is not working. Yeah, and, the only thing I think that's going to get them to change their approach to that is, like, Carolina's going to have to get absolutely embarrassed at some point sooner than the Eastern Conference Finals. before maybe they start making some changes. Now, this isn't all on Rod. The team is not good enough. They need to make a trade. But I've definitely gotten away from, because I used to be a very, very vehement Rod defender. Not to the extent of certain people who are very cultish about him, because there are people like that out there that base their decisions off of base their opinions off of the decisions he makes. You know, and just for the record, I'm not talking about people like Griff. You guys know my friend Griff. I'm not talking about people like him. He's just a very, very pro-Rod guy, but he still wasn't agreeing with Morrow being in the lineup over Nikishin and stuff like that. He tends to agree with Rod's decisions a lot more than I do, but the amount of times that like I've defended Rod is starting to dwindle a little bit. Not a ton, but I am starting to like not do it as much as I was. So, but yeah, Daniel does make a good point here. He does make adjustments. My problem is that it takes forever for him to make these adjustments. After 22-23, I understand why you don't change a ton. I totally understand that. That makes complete and absolute sense. You just got that far, and you lost to a hot goaltender, and your forward group was depleted. Okay, I can understand the rationale behind that. But yeah, the puck movement up ice is a lot better and everything like that, but it takes him too long to adjust things. So the one thing about Panarin on the Canes this year, we are doing a lot more off the rush than in the past. Yeah, and you know, he could benefit from that, and ultimately the whole team. They are doing more off the rush. They're not dumping the puck in as much as they were. They're generating clean entries a lot more. That's part of the reason why I think their speed is down in the edge data, is because they're making the controlled entries a little bit more, and they're not just dumping the puck in and, you know, getting on their horse to chase it. So that's a very good point as well. I'm doing my best to be a little bit more positive about the team. I really am. I'm not convinced right now. I'm just really not. I feel like I need to see something better as far as the construction of the roster before I can really think that. If it's one or the other, I say trade Nystrom. Cal should be a full-time NHLer next season. Rip Chatty. They'd have to buy him out though, because he's got a no trade clause. The system is also one of the big reasons Nate just didn't fit and got traded. Look at his numbers now. He's a zone entry machine. Never really got a proper C in his line in Carolina. What a shame. The little bit of time him and KK played together, I thought they were good. But Rod, when Svechnikov got hurt, that line clearly couldn't be together anymore. And then he never really put that line back together for an extended period of time. And, you know, and it always came back to he didn't like what he saw. And, you know, it was the same thing with, you know, KK Hall and Robinson at the beginning of the season. I thought that was great. But, you know, let's just face the facts. Rod was looking for a reason to scratch KK. He saw his faceoffs down a little bit, even though that line was the second best one in terms of expected goals percentage. And, you know, he was looking for a reason to scratch him. That's all it was. That's all it's ever been since the players only meeting last year. So, but John Smith, no, I do not want Panarin. I don't know if you saw what I said about it earlier. I'm not. If it happens, we'll see how it works, because, you know, ultimately we don't have say in it. But if it were up to me, no, Panarin would not even be touched. The only thing I'm hoping that they're inquiring about Panarin about is to drive the price up so that somebody else has to expend more assets to get him, or a team like San Jose is the one who really has to expend the assets. And he goes out west, and you don't have to worry about him hurting you 4 times a year. You only have to worry about him hurting you twice. And that threat of him hurting Carolina is going to go down anyway, because he's getting older. So do you think Nate just needed to go? I don't think it was a Canes issue or necessarily his issue either. They just didn't fit. But at the same time, it's like, certain guys need to be allowed to operate a little bit outside of the system. Necas and Svechnikov were 2 guys I in particular pointed out with that, and I got absolutely eviscerated for it. But now Necas is operating in an environment that is significantly better for him, and he's flourishing. And Svechnikov is not totally he's operating outside of the defensive structure a little bit, and he's playing well because of it. Seeing us linked to Panarin and reports of a 4x11 extension have me nervous. I feel like that could tank our window. The window's over instantly if that happens. Done. That's it. It's Jover immediately. If that happens, this team's cooked. Straight up. That shouldn't even be a thought crossing Tulski's mind. If you can get him as a relatively inexpensive rental and you think that he can help the team now, sure. Anything past that, you know, and I said the same thing about Kiefer Sherwood. Get him for a rental, even though that ship has sailed, obviously. Get him for a rental, and then you have a spot for Nadeau to go up if he ever gets a chance to. But they called him up last time, and he didn't play. So I think we circle back on EP40 this summer if we don't fix the 2-seed deadline. Very distinct possibility. Rod refuses to give rookies an actual opportunity. Yeah, it took Nino Niederreiter being hurt for Seth Jarvis to get an extended look. So, valid. It was Rod's issue. You may very well be right, my friend. It's a catch-22, not good enough to play any other way, but have to play this style because of our roster talent. Yeah, that's why the roster's got to get better, and then you can start saying, okay, Rod, you can't justify the game management decisions you make anymore if the roster is better. The only time that's really truly been a legitimately good argument that he just managed a good roster badly was 23-24. He exceeded expectations with the last one. The one before that, half of them were in the hospital and they still got to the conference finals. The year before that, the goaltending was garbage because you had Antti Ranta and a rookie Kochekov. You could only get so much out of that tandem. So Corey Tulsky did say in the Corey Lobb article that they're getting on the rush more this season because they feel like they finally have the talent to do more so, and specifically mentioned Blake. Yeah, that's one thing that's absolutely true about Jackson Blake is that his ability to generate zone entries is great. I just wish he would pick his head up a little bit more or he's going to get cleaned out. Like, I'm waiting on the day that he gets a Giordano on Aho style hit because he puts his head down a lot more than he should. He's not as bad about it as he was, but it only takes one. So, like he says, Jan Gretzky. J-Dub says LOL. All right, guys. Well, that was fun. Damage report is a maybe. I got up really early today, and my legs are killing me. I did a really, really hard workout, and they're going to be killing me even more tomorrow. And I have ice time on Sunday and Tuesday. So I am going to go sit down, grab me a Waterloo or 2 or 5 or 10, and I am going to watch the game. I will be complaining about Jankowski and posting numerous other things on X during the game. Again, if you want to get you a hat, the link's in the description. Sorry that it's displaying the back of the hat instead of the front. If you look at the link, it'll show you the front of the hat. There's stickers in there, donation links. Also, make sure that you subscribe to the new Warning Take Prospects Forecast channel. Content on that will be starting here within the next couple of weeks, and it should be a pretty steady flow of things from there. So, everybody, thank you very much. I really appreciate all your support and everything, and hopefully, if I'm not dead tired, I will see you after the game.